Hi, in today's video we'll talk about World Press Freedom Day and the freedom of press in India. World Press Freedom Day, popularly known as World Press Day, is one of the calendar events planned, organized and promoted by the United Nations and is observed annually on May 3rd. The day is celebrated to raise awareness regarding the importance of freedom of the press and is a reflection among media professionals about the issues of press freedom and professional ethics. Here's a quick fact. In 2020, India's press freedom rank dropped to 142 out of 180 countries in the Press Freedom Index, which is an annual ranking of countries published by the Reporters Without Borders (RWB), an international non-governmental organization dedicated to safeguard the right to freedom of information. Now, what is freedom of press? Freedom of the press refers to the minimal interference of the state in the operations of press on any form of communication, including print, which means newspapers, magazines, journals, or audio, like radios and podcasts, videos, like OTT platforms like YouTube, and over other electronic mediums like news apps, social media feeds, etc. Freedom of press refers to having the freedom to express what one pleases without any prior permission from the law. Why freedom of press? As per the Honorable Supreme Court in Indian Newspaper versus Union of India, the objective of the press is to supplement the public interest by printing facts and opinions without which the citizens of the country cannot make a well-informed rational judgment. Freedom of the press is in the crux of social and political intercourse. It is the paramount duty of the judiciary to prop the freedom of press and refute all laws and executive actions that interfere with it as opposed to the constitutional provisions. Press is a medium of availing knowledge and spreading the vital information of events, developments, incidents of national interest to the whole nation, and thus free and fair operation of the press makes the backbone of a civil society which is capable of critical and independent thinking and forms its opinions about the country and the government after scrutinizing the facts of the situation wisely. Now, status of freedom of press in India. In Ramesh Thapar versus State of Madras, the court observed that freedom of speech and of the press lay at the foundation of all democratic organization. For without free political discussion, no public education so essential for the proper functioning of the process of popular government is possible. In this case, 5 entry and circulation of the English journal Crossroad, printed and published in Bombay, was banned by the government of Madras. The same was held to be violative of freedom of speech and expression, as without liberty of circulation publication would be of very little value. The Honorable Supreme Court observed in Union of India versus Association for Democratic Reforms that one-sided information, disinformation, misinformation and non-information all equally create an ununiform citizenry which makes democracy a farce. Freedom of speech and expression includes right to impart and receive information, which includes freedom to hold opinions. In Indian Express newspapers versus Union of India, it has been held that the press plays a very significant role in the democratic machinery. The courts have the duty to uphold the freedom of press and invalidate all laws and administrative actions that abridge that freedom. Freedom of press has 3 essential elements. They are: number 1, freedom of access to all sources of information; number 2, freedom of publication; and number 3, freedom of circulation. There are many instances when the freedom of press has been suppressed by the legislature. In Sarkar Papers versus Union of India, the daily newspaper Price and Page Order of 1960, which fixed the number of pages and size which a newspaper could publish at a price, was held to be violative of freedom of press and not a reasonable restriction under the Article 19(2). Similarly, in Bennett Coleman and Co. versus Union of India, the validity of Newsprint Control Order, which fixed the maximum number of pages, was struck down by the court, holding it to be violative of provision of Article 19(1)(a) and not to be a reasonable restriction under Article 19(2). The court also rejected the plea of the government that it would help small newspapers to grow. Restriction on freedom of press in India. The freedom of press comes within the ambit of freedom of speech and expression. In a democracy, freedom of press is highly essential as it acts as a watchdog on the three organs of a democracy, which are legislature, number two executive, and lastly the judiciary. But the freedom of press is not absolute in nature. It is subject to certain restrictions which are mentioned in Article 19(2) of the Constitution. The following are the grounds of restrictions laid down in the article. Number 1. Sovereignty and integrity of India. Number 2. Security of the state. Number 3. Friendly relations with foreign states. Number 4. Public order. Number 5. Decency or morality. And number 6. Contempt of court. The grounds of public order and friendly relations with foreign states was added by the Constitution First Amendment Act 1951, while the grounds of sovereignty and integrity of India was added by the Constitution's 16th Amendment Act 1963. Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code deals with the offence of sedition. It lays down that whoever by words, either spoken or written, or by signs or by visible representation or otherwise, brings or attempts to bring into hatred or contempt, or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government established by the law in India, shall be punished with imprisonment for life, to which fine may be added, or with imprisonment which may extend to 3 years, to which fine may be added, or with fine alone. Explanation 3 says, comments expressing disapprobation of the administrative or other action of the government without exciting or attempting to excite hatred, contempt, or disaffection do not constitute an offence under this section. In Devi Saran v. State, the court has held that Section 124A imposes reasonable restriction on the interest of public order and therefore it is protected under Article 19(2) of the Constitution. As discussed earlier, press is regarded as one of the pillars of a democracy as it acts as a watchdog of the three organs of it. Though freedom of speech and expression, including that of press, is enjoyed by the citizens, but there are many instances where the press has to face difficulties as well. In the recent past, in the Tehelka case, the portal tehelka.com was forced to shut down completely and its journalists were continuously harassed as they exposed the scam in Defence Ministry involving ex-defence personnel and central government ministers. There are many instances where journalists were threatened and even assaulted at times. Despite of these difficulties, the press has achieved a lot of success in the recent past. In Jessica Lal's case, Manu Sharma, son of a Haryana minister, killed Jessica on April 29, 1999 because she refused to serve him alcohol in the restaurant where she was working. The case was closed and all the accused were freed due to lack of evidences, but finally the case was reopened after media and public outcry, which led to Sharma's conviction. In Priyadarshini Mato's case, Santosh Kumar, son of an IPS officer, raped and killed his colleague Priyadarshini, a law student, in 1996, after she refused his proposal. Ailing, an aged father of Priyadarshini, got the judgment in October 2006 after a long-run trial. The Delhi High Court rebooked lower courts and authority under investigation for acquittal of the accused. The media played an important role in this case as well. Similarly, in Nitish Katara's case, the media played an important role. In Arushi Talwar's murder case, media played an important part by highlighting the loopholes in the case, due to which the police was forced to take some action. Arushi's father was the prime suspect in this case. Recently, in Ruchika's case, Ruchika Girhotra, a 14-year-old tennis player, was molested by the then Haryana Police IG SPS Rathore in Panchkula in 1990. 3 years later, Ruchika killed herself, which her friend and case witness Aradhana attributes to the harassment of Ruchika and her family by those in power. 19 years later, Rathore walks away with 6 months of rigorous imprisonment and a 1,000 rupees fine reportedly due to his old age and the prolonged trial. This led to public outrage and media played a significant role on it. Later on, the government of India asked the CBI to reinvestigate the case and the police medals awarded to SPS Rathore were also stripped. A case of abatement to suicide under section 306 of the IPC was also filed against him. The press has played an important role for public welfare, but at times it acts irresponsibly. For instance, the electronic media hyped the Abhi Ash wedding in such a way that other important news were neglected. In Professor Sabharwal's case, when Professor Sabharwal was killed by an ABVP activist, there was a number of news channels and newspapers correspondent were present and they had witnessed the murder, but the media acted irresponsibly and the police called it an open and shut case. Recently, when Mumbai was under terror threat in 2011, the media acted irresponsibly by telecasting live the long 60-hour operation Black Tornado by the security forces to combat the attack at Taj Mahal Palace Hotel and Nariman House. It included live feed of air-dropping NSG commandos on the rooftop of Nariman House. At times, news channels cover news such as Bollywood gossips and Page 3 etc., which has reduced them to a mere entertainment channel. There are many important issues which should be covered by the media, but unfortunately it does not. In April 2009, the Union Minister P. Chidambaram was addressing the media at a press conference when a journalist threw shoe at the minister on protest of acquittal of a Congress leader accused of leading anti-Sikh riots in 1984. The journalist named Jarnal Singh was a reporter of Dainik Jagran, a local newspaper. Later on, he apologized to the Union Home Minister for his act. This was one of the most condemnable acts which showed the ugly side of the press. Lastly, I would like to conclude the video by quoting words of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi ji, saying, "The role of journalism should be service. The press is a great power, but just as an unchained torrent of water submerges the whole countryside and devastates the crops, even so an uncontrolled pen serves but to destroy." There are three pillars of democracy: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. The press acts as the fourth pillar of a democracy and plays many significant roles in delivering justice and public welfare. It has been 60 years since India became a republic and of commencement of the Constitution of India. As being a subject of the largest democracy of the world, we should remember the words of a former Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi, wherein he said that freedom of press is an article of faith with us, sanctioned by our constitution, validated by 4 decades of freedom, and indispensable to our future as a nation. We can conclude that the time has come for the press of largest democracy of the world to work with hand in hand with the judiciary for the welfare of its subjects. The day is not far away when there will be no eclipse of injustice and the sun of justice will shine brightly forever.